Hey guys, thank you for stopping by, clicking on the video, and I hope you like what you see. This is my second attempt at a creepypasta, and if you like it, please do that like, comment, subscribe thing. It goes a long way. And also, if you really want to support the channel, I have a merch store down below. I'm adding new designs to it all the time, and that would be super awesome. But without further ado, please enjoy the show. Caleb's eyes flew open, the world spinning in murky darkness. A cold ache lodged deep in his bones. He was no longer on his porch or inside his cabin. He laid sprawled on the cold, hard ground of a strange forest. Its trees, tall and warped, twisted into grotesque shapes that seemed to reach out like skeletal hands. The air was thick, almost stifling, carrying the scent of rot and damp earth. The woods were silent. He struggled to his feet, feeling the weight of exhaustion and confusion pressing on him like an iron shroud. Shadows shifted at the edges of his vision, sliding through the trees, taunting him with glimpses of half-formed figures, twisted faces, and something else. Something that filled his heart with aching familiarity. It seemed to be the shadow of a man. His outline flickered like a fading photograph, tall, broad-shouldered, a hat pulled over his brow. Caleb's breath caught memories clawing back to the surface. His father, or something that wore his father's shape. Without thinking, Caleb stumbled after the shadow, his legs weak, his vision blurring at the edges. The figure moved through dense undergrowth, stepping over roots and pushing through the tangle of twisted branches as if it knew the path intimately, as if it belonged in this place. Caleb's heart pounded as he chased after it, half convinced he was dreaming, yet the sharpness of the cold, biting wind pressing against his skin assured him that he was very much awake. The figure led him deeper into the forest, where the trees grew denser, towering and gnarled, their bark carved with strange ancient symbols. Some of the markings resembled eyes, others mouths frozen in screams. Caleb paused, fingers grazing one of the symbols. He felt a wave of nausea wash over him. The sigil was warm to the touch, pulsing faintly, as if it were alive.
Caleb.
A voice drifted through the trees, low and mournful. Echoing from all directions, it sounded like his father's voice, but older, weaker, layered with something else, something darker. Dad? Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. The shadow limped forward, and Caleb followed, stumbling into a clearing. What he saw made his blood run cold. There, half buried in the earth, stood the ruins of what had once been a village. Crumbling stone, walls stretched up, covered with moss and fungus. Twisted metal beams jutted out at odd angles as if clawing for freedom. The remnants of the houses and ancient structures leaned precariously, their walls carved with more of those strange, sinister sigils. At the center of the clearing, there was an enormous stone, circular and flat, carved into the ground, covered in symbols and strange markings that seemed to crawl and writhe of their own accord. The air above it seemed to shimmer, giving off a faint, sickly green glow, as if the stone was calling for Caleb.
Caleb.
The voice was stronger now, urgent, as though begging him to come closer.
Caleb.
The shadow that wore his father's shape stood by the stone, hands outstretched, its fingers bent in a strange, unnatural way. It beckoned him, a mixture of pleading and command. And as Caleb approached, he saw the truth. This was not his father. The face, though familiar, was hollowed and twisted with age and sorrow, eyes wide and empty, leaking darkness like thick, inky tears. What are you? Caleb asked, voice trembling. But the figure did not answer. Instead, it pointed to the stone, to a deep, dark fissure at its center that pulsed with light like a heartbeat. Caleb gazed into the fissure, feeling an inexplicable pull as though it were calling to him, whispering promises he couldn't quite understand. He caught glimpses of things within the light, faces, shifting shapes, fragments of his own memories. His father's voice echoed again, this time filled with a raw, desperate fear.
Don't let it in, Caleb. Caleb, it waits. It waits in the darkness.
Suddenly, the shadow lunged forward, hands outstretched, pushing him back and forcing him away from the stone. Caleb stumbled, world spinning, his vision flashing with memories that weren't his, images of his father walking this very path, alone and terrified, hunted by the same creature. He saw flashes of Hank's frantic face, his bloodied hands clutching at his own throat, the same sigil swirling around him, binding him, pulling him deeper into the nightmare forest. The shadow released Caleb and melted back, sinking into the darkness, its form scattering into wisps of smoke. But Caleb had seen enough. He understood now that this place, this forest, was a prison. A realm where the creature held its prey, binding them to an ancient curse, feeding on their fears, forcing them to haunt those they'd left behind. The forest seemed to close in, the trees leaning forward, the sigils on the bark pulsating as if coming alive. Caleb felt a chill crawl down his spine. Behind him, something shifted, a dark, slithering shape, its voice faint, a mocking whisper.
Did you think you'd escape, Caleb? Your father couldn't resist me. Neither will you.
The ground beneath him trembled. The stone in the center of the clearing began to hum, the symbols shifting and reforming into new patterns. Caleb took a step back, but the creature's laughter echoed through the trees, vibrating deep into his bones, giving him goose flesh.
Join him
It whispered.
in my forest.
Caleb looked around, desperate, but there was nowhere to run. The trees had formed a wall. The ground was littered with bones. Bones he hadn't noticed before. Scattered and half buried, each one bearing the same symbols etched into their surfaces. The shadow of his father appeared again, reaching towards him with desperate eyes, but this time, Caleb understood. It was a warning. He had one choice: to resist, to find a way to fight or join the countless souls trapped within the creature's realm. He took a deep breath, clutching his fists together. Deep inside him, he felt a spark of defiance. I'm not like him. I'm not like him. I'll find a way out, Caleb whispered. But the darkness around him only tightened, the creature's voice growling louder and more ravenous.
We shall see.